The state, he declared in perhaps his most memorable epigram, is that great fiction by which everyone tries to live at the expense of everyone else. And therein lies the problem we have in the West today. They keep trying new policies for growth, but the underlying problem is what Frederick Bastiat said. Thursday, May 29th, 2025, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Well, we're going to go back in history, as I usually like to do, and we're going to go back to 1992 today. I want to expose the fallacy that governments and Wall Street look after our interests, that they want the system to work well so that it produces wealth. Yes, we're going to look at how Bessent got me in 1992, but he's not going to get me this time. And I'm going to look as well as what's happening, not just in the US in terms of inflation, government spending, but also in the UK, because it's not getting any better here. And ultimately, what they're doing is they're extracting wealth from you, your property. And we know that the Western economy, Western civilization has thrived under the principle of private property. So before we go deeper into what's happening today, let's look at history and some basic principles about inflation, money, and what government really is after these days. Well, the first principle I want to look at is the principle of the rule of law. And I'm going to recommend a book, as I usually like to do, and it's The Law by Frederick Bastiat. And it says here, the classic blueprint for a just society. The law. It is impossible to introduce into society a greater change and a greater evil than this, the conversion of the law into an instrument of plunder. France of 1850 was in political turmoil. In the aftermath of the Revolution of 1848, the tide of socialism was sweeping the nation. One man stood alone against the tide. The precocious son of a merchant, Frederick Bastiat, devoured the writings of free trade economists such as Adam Smith and Jean-Baptiste Say. Rejecting the popular notions of his day, Bastiat began to speak and write against ideas he believed were undermining natural harmonies of interest among men. First as an orator and essayist, later as a member of the Legislative Assembly, he became known for withering logic and devastating wit. He also became isolated politically. The struggle between left and right was for power and plunder. Yet Bastiat believed that the only purpose of government was to guarantee individual rights and freedom. The state, he declared in perhaps his most memorable epigram, is that great fiction by which everyone tries to live at the expense of everyone else. And therein lies the problem we have in the West today. They keep trying new policies for growth, but the underlying problem is what Frederick Bastiat said. The other thing I wanted to point out is that inflation is not created by higher prices. It's not created by Putin's policy. It's created by the state. And Félix Sommeray, almost 100 years ago, stated, and I quote him, "The state alone is responsible for inflation. Without government, or indeed against government, is impossible." So there you go. So as we're talking about private property, government confiscation through taxation and inflation, I want to talk about our new sponsor, Incogni, and how they could be the solution for the protection of your private information online, on the internet. And I know the internet is a great tool, and it gives us access to an abundance of information right at our fingertips. Unfortunately, this also includes your information. And recently here in the UK, we had cyber attacks, hacks on some of the major supermarkets' online services. For example, my Sparks card from Marks and Spencer's, I've had to re-register because it was compromised. And just imagine what could happen if hackers had access to you and your family's name, addresses, emails, phone numbers, and medical records. And unfortunately, it's been proven that the older we get, the more vulnerable we get to these scams. And these data breaches can happen anytime. Anytime you sign up for a newsletter or register for a service or fill in an online form, your data can end up in the hands of data brokers. Yes, there is such a thing as data brokers who profit off buying and selling your information. So with today's sponsor, Incogni, you can take back control of your data. So how does that work? Well, getting started with Incogni is very simple. You create an account, give them permission to work with you, and you're ready to go. So Incogni scans data broker databases for your personal information. It's that simple. And then they send out removal requests. And progress reports will keep you informed about your requests and their progress and how many have been completed. And it doesn't just stop there. Incogni rescans and continually adds new data brokers and people's search sites to their list. The process is totally automatic, so all you need to do is sit back knowing that your data is secure. So don't wait until it's too late. Enter the code Maneco64 at the link below and get 60% off an annual plan and secure your privacy today. So back to Scott Bessent in 1992. How did he fool me? How did he get me in 1992? Well, it goes back to when I decided to accept a job offer in the city of London. At the time, in the summer of 1992, I was still working in Switzerland. I was working for a small private bank. I'd been there for almost 3 years in Geneva, Switzerland. And I was approached by someone who was starting a desk at Cantor Fitzgerald, actually, in London. And yes, I accepted it, and we negotiated a salary. And at the time, the exchange rate between the pound and the Swiss franc was 280. Yes, one pound fetched 2 francs 80. Right now, it's like 110. But yeah, so we signed contracts and everything, and I made my move to London, and I arrived in September on the bank holiday weekend, beginning of September, and I went to work for the first time on Tuesday, beginning of September. And a few weeks later, we had the famous attack, or the attack on the British pound, the so-called George Soros breaking of the Bank of England. But through time, we've learned that Scott Bessent was probably involved in this. I think at the time he was actually working for Soros in London, or he might have been in New York, but he was instrumental in attacking the British pound. And at the time, of course, there was a policy of exchange rate mechanism. The government in the UK was trying to keep the pound in this band for the European Monetary Union. They were thinking of joining the euro eventually. And the pound was too strong. The government didn't have enough. We were in a recession here in the UK. And on that, I forget the day, exactly in September, it was a huge collapse of the pound. The Bank of England had to raise rates from 10 to 15%, and then they cut it back to 10 the same day. So it was a huge crisis, and the pound, after the dust had settled, had dropped to like 240 to the Swiss franc. So a 20% drop, and I felt a little bit hard done by. I thought to myself, well, I'm not earning as much anymore as I used to in Switzerland. And that's how Bessent got me. That's how they, when they devalue the currency, they're actually stealing from you. And I know Bessent wasn't part of the government back then, but have you noticed whenever there's a crisis, they save Wall Street. The politicians, the central bankers, they all work together because the welfare state, the big corporate welfare state, they all depend on the inflation, fiat currency inflation. So when I say that I'm not going to be fooled this time, I mean that I don't buy into Bessent's talk that he wants a strong dollar, that they're going to bring down inflation, that they're going to cut the deficit, they're going to cut spending, because they can't. Because if they do, they don't only bring Wall Street and the City of London down, they bring the whole government down. The debt that the government carries has to be financed via the financial system. So, as Felix Soros said, yes, only the state alone with its agents in the financial sector can create inflation. And the people who get hurt are, of course, us, the general public, who don't understand these shenanigans. And that's why I make these videos, to try to explain to people. Of course, protection from this, as I've said many times in the past, is through having some gold and silver outside the system. So why do I think they're not really serious about improving things, be it Bessent or Rachel Reeves here in the UK? Well, I'll give you some proof, hopefully, that will make you believe me. The first one actually is about Nigel Farage, and you might say, what's he got to do with it? Well, his Reform Party is gathering a lot of strength. A lot of people speculate it might be the next party in power, which would be quite revolutionary for the UK, seeing that the Conservatives and Labour have been in power for many, many decades. But I saw this headline here, Yahoo News: Nigel Farage dubbed snake oil salesman over Reform UK's new welfare promises. So it says here, Nigel Farage has been dubbed a snake oil salesman by Angela Rayner as he reportedly wants to fully reinstate winter fuel allowance, winter fuel payments, and scrap the two-child benefit cap. So what's this got to do with inflation and Rachel Reeves? Well, the Labour government has been trying to cut the welfare state, but now they're finding out that the people, unfortunately, want more and more largesse. It's what Frederick Bastiat said here: the state is that great fiction by which everyone tries to live at the expense of everyone else, that via inflation. So Nigel Farage, he gets it. He knows the people want the inflation, and many people think a reform is going to change everything, but no, it's the same thing. And what about Rachel Reeves? Well, Rachel Reeves, squeezed by rising borrowing costs and spending pressures, market turmoil adds strain to UK Chancellor's fiscal plans as fear over U.S. debt increase. So that's in the FT. It says here, Starmer's benefits U-turn to blow $5 billion hole in budget. Pressure on Prime Minister to loosen purse strings threatens to squeeze public finances. And why are they doing that? Well, because they were trashed in the recent local election, and they have to backtrack on trying to tighten the finances. But anyway, they're doing all the wrong things. They think that government should be involved in the economy and spur growth. They don't espouse to the philosophy that you cut the size of government to the bare minimum and you allow the private sector to flourish. What about in the US? What's happening? Well, in the US, it's even bigger because there's a lot of hope that with the new administration, you'd have a Doge, you'd cut waste, corruption, deficits, and the debt would come down and the dollar would strengthen. But it's all unraveling, I have to say. So this meme here catches everything really well, and it's from Natalie Danelishin, and it says, make it make sense. So you've got Trump saying we need Doge cuts, and then you got Thomas Massie, we should codify the Doge cuts, and then the Speaker, Johnson, saying, here's a bill that will negate all the cuts Doge just made. What? No, that's Thomas Massie. And then Trump says Massie is the problem. So there you go. And so it's all going out the window. When push comes to shove, politicians will always spend because they want to stay in power. And then I'll play you this clip here from Elon Musk, who's just left the administration. And I wonder why. Some people will say, oh, he was just going to stay, he wasn't going to stay that long anyway. But from Natalie Danelishin again, she posted this, and I'll play it for you.
So, I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, like, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it could be both. My personal opinion.
So there you go. He does. That's a really good point there. A bill can can only be big, but it can't be beautiful. A beautiful bill would, of course, cut deficit, cut the size of government, and cut taxes. That's a beautiful bill, but you can't have a big and beautiful bill. And talking about government coming after your wealth, and they do that when it gets to the point where we are, where the deficits and the debt are humongous, when interest rates start going up. That's the only thing they know how to do, is take away from you. So another headline here in the UK, HMRC plans for tax rate on pensions, salary sacrifice shake-up could cost workers extra $500 a year. So I'm sorry to say they're coming after your savings, not just through inflation, but also through taxation. And if you don't believe me, just look at M2, which is really inflation, is the growth of the money supply. That's just made an all-time record high in the US at over 21.8 trillion. It's even gone through the high from April 2022. So yes, Bessent got me in 1992. He's not going to get me this time. And why is that? Well, because I'm not going to be left holding the bag with massive amounts of fiat currency savings. I'm going to have it in hard assets, especially gold and silver. And I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just giving my opinion on how I try to protect my savings. from inflation, which is basically counterfeiting by the government and by Wall Street. They both institutions love it because it's money for nothing and chicks for free, right? Remember that old song. So let's check the markets this morning. It's just gone past 8 o'clock London time. Yeah, we've got gold down about 12 bucks, 32.75. I think what we're seeing in gold is just a consolidation, just working out the excess that we had earlier this year when we went, massively higher to 3,500. It's just like taking a rest before it goes even higher. Silver's up 20 cents. So we've got the gold silver ratio back below 100 here. We're at 33.20. And we've seen the stock market rise quite a bit overnight, about 1% in the Dow. It's up about 2% in the NASDAQ 100 future and up about 1.5% S&P 500. What's that all about? Well, it's to do with the U.S. Trade Court saying that Trump's global tariffs are illegal. So we'll have to see how this works out. So I'm not sure how powerful this court is and whether this is going to hold up. What else is going on? Let's have a quick look at the bond market. The 10-year yield right now back above 4.5%. We're at 452, up 5 basis points. The 30 years back above 5% at 502. So that doesn't bode well. I think there's a lot of uncertainty and problems underneath the bonnet, as we say in the UK, or the hood in the US. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.